the crowd.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the World Championship Series Season 1 live from Poitiers, France. After starting the weekend with 16 players, we are now down to just 4. And in our first semi-final match, our first player is considered by many to be the favorite to win the whole tournament. In his first season of WCS, he's already in the top 4 and he says nobody can stop him. From Root Gaming, Hydra! Facing Hydra is the #1 German player in the world. This match is bound to be the biggest obstacle he will ever have to face. However, he must win here if he wants to make it on to the finals. From Team Alternate, ShoWTimE! It'll be South Korea versus Germany for our first semi-final match of the day. Players, please shake hands. We'll see which of these players will move on to the finals of WCS Season 1. Experts, over to you.
And then there were 4. 16 players traveled to Poitiers, France to compete in the Season 1 finals for the Premier League, and then there were 4. 2 Koreans, and then we have 2 Europeans going head-to-head here to battle for the chance to play in the Grand Finals. Joining me, Fenner, Nathan, and Rotterdam, of course. I don't know why I called you Nathan, you Rotterdam. I suppose I can call you Nathanias and Kevin.
It's close we're just not that close, Sean. I see where you're going with this.
I love you, Roddy, and you know I do. Guys, let's talk about these players. This is a fantastic semi-final, but we have to argue that ShoWTimE has his work cut out for him in the biggest challenge of his career so far.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the biggest series he's ever going to play, and he's going to go up against the #1 player that's left in this tournament, a player that, as a lot of people said at the start of the season, that he is going to take it all. But it's not an impossible task. Like, it could have been worse, I think, on paper. Needless to say, it's going to be one hell of a battle, but I believe.
He's definitely been on fire so far throughout this tournament. We've been seeing him crushing everyone left, right, and center. Did really well against Kane. A lot of unorthodox strategies. Rod, I'm smiling here because of that Phoenix into charge lot strategy that we saw earlier.
I think it's very important to lay it out there, man. In these 2 semifinals, it's 2 heavily favored Korean players going against the non-Koreans that oftentimes, you know, if anybody's making their predictions out here, it's going to be that Terran versus Zerg finals between Polt and Hydra. This is the chance to get potentially already the biggest upset we might see this whole year if ShoWTimE were to win this best of 5.
Do you think the amount of pressure that, I mean, first of all, is there any pressure on ShoWTimE's shoulders here? If you think about it, when you're a pro gamer, this is everything for you now. You're in the semi-finals. You're 1 game away from making it to the grand finals.
Yeah, you might be able to say, like, well, there's not too much pressure because everybody thinks Hydra's going to win, but that's not what ShoWTimE is thinking. This is such a unique opportunity. You don't want to say it's a once-in-a-lifetime because you don't know what's going to happen, you know, in the rest of his career, but it could very well be a once-in-a-lifetime. A semi-finals of a WCS Premier League, there is definitely pressure, man. Like, there's so much on the line. There is no way that you can forget about this unique opportunity.
If you work this hard, if you practice this hard to get this far in a tournament of this level of prestige, you don't get to the semifinals and think to yourself, oh, you know what? I did a good job. We can stop here. This is fine. No, he's thinking to himself, this is my shot to prove everybody that I'm #1 outside of Korea and pick up a big prize to start the year.
But sadly for ShoWTimE, the player on the other side is saying, ShoWTimE, just quit this. This is my trophy. This is my tournament. It's, of course, Hydra, who's had a fantastic start in the WCS. It's his debut WCS. After moving from Korea to America, he now resides in California with a P1 athlete's visa to compete purely in this tournament. His goal this year is to win everything. It's to go to the global finals, and it is to be crowned the World Championship Series Global champion. This is a massive feat, and this is just the beginning for him, Fenner.
If we were saying ShoWTimE is on fire, then Hydra has to be a supernova right now, because he has been blazing up through these brackets.
I'm sure
you're right.
watching as well.
You're right. You're right. Talk to us about Hydra, though, Fenner. I mean, he's a Zerg player. He's been following his games throughout the weekend, throughout this tournament. What is it about him that makes him so special that has given him the semi-final position?
Since we've been in with a lot of Europeans here, a lot of European Zerg players, the American Zerg player, Kane, as well, or the Canadian Zerg player, a lot of them play more defensive. They go into the swarm host, whereas Hydra over here, he's Korean. Koreans generally like aggressive strategies. What we've seen from him recently, we've seen big Hydralings, big Roachling attacks, switches into Muta, all that kind of stuff. And we saw against Parting recently, I think it was in Gfinity, right? Yeah, he was going a lot of Roachling in there, a lot of early Speedling attacks as well. So a lot different from what we've seen so far out of the other Zerg players here.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that's definitely going to help ShoWTimE in this series is that Hydra has played two multiple very, very big series against Protoss recently. Of course, the Intel 3 Masters against Zest, still very recent, a very prominent series as well, a series that a lot of people spoke about. It was the best series of day one or day two, maybe even of the entire tournament. So there's no way that ShoWTimE hasn't seen those games. And every now and then you watch a series and you're like, well, I can't really learn too much from that. From that series, I think you can learn so much from Hydra CVP. And of course, the same goes for Parting versus Hydra, because that was a series that the Protoss player won, just like Zest won. And Zest you could really see that Zest was adapting, was learning about Hydra throughout the series, and I really think that there's a lot of very, very valuable information in those games.
All right, well, let's take a look at the map order. As we just saw in the last quarterfinal, the map order can actually mean a lot depending on how the two players are going to play. We have Expedition Lost, which is Hydra's pick, going over to ShoWTimE, Catalina, Overgrowth, Vanny Research Station, and Deadwing.
Expedition Lost, Catalina. We've got all these maps that we generally see in this series. Between these two races, we've got Secret Spring vetoed for Hydra. Once again, every Zerg player is vetoing that. They don't want to touch it at all. ShoWTimE vetoing the big map there. Yeah, probably because it's got really wide open concaves and stuff. But let's have a look at these maps.
I mean, let's look at Expedition Lost, right? It's the first map of the series, and the first map is always going to set the tone for how the series usually is going to play out, unless we see some drastic changes from side to side. Expedition Lost, difficult for Protoss. Hydra's picked it straight off the bat. Rotterdam, talk me through your struggles, through Protoss struggles, and why Hydra's chosen this.
I mean, the reason why Hydra chooses it is that if you can get up to Swarmos on this map and you can put them in between the second and third base of Protoss, there's almost no way for Protoss to avoid this. This is not a map where you can just run circles or expand far away and mine up that base for a while. It's very difficult. If Zerg stabilizes and sets themselves up in the way that they want to, there's very little you can do. I think game number one is a game where we're going to see Hydra do something very specific for that map alone. Could be something similar to what we saw earlier today on Catalina, you know, War Prism, Sentry stuff. I'm definitely like feeling that way. I don't think this is, I don't think he looks at Expedition Lost as like, let's go 3 bases and then eventually try to take my 4 and maxed out. Like, no, it's going to be something really explosive to hit hard and fast.
Nathanias, please, Fenner.
Even though we've seen a lot of Hydraling and aggressive strategies from Hydra, if you look back about a month, I was looking at his older VODs as well. He was going for big Swarm host plays and then switching into Muta. So as Rotterdam said, Swarm host really good on this map. If he decides to go back to his older styles, then he could definitely implement that on this map.
Nathanias, I want to ask you a question. The pace of this series and how it's going to play out, do you think this is Hydra protecting his semi-final, protecting his potential final? Or is it more Hydra, I'm going to steamroll you, get out of this tournament?
I think for Hydra, it's just got to be to play his A game, because ShoWTimE is not only going to try to use whatever way he can bring this map pool into his control, taking things like the back rocks, trying to prevent him from reaching that position. But if he wants to control the pace of the game, it's got to be an aggressive one out of ShoWTimE. He took a couple of maps off Soul Key and the Frybite Masters. He pulled some strong builds. He's actually faced the Mutalist Swarm host sort of style that you'd mentioned. He's been experienced with a lot of these strategies. He really needs to just go beyond at this point.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. It's time to begin the semi-finals. In Korea versus Germany, we are going to see Hydra take on ShoWTimE. Can the German topple the favorite? Let's find out.
The first round of 4 match here now between 2 unlikely suspects and 2 that ideally should have met in the round of 32. If we cast our minds back to how that played out, Hydra was denied that first place spot in his round of 32 group to go up against ShoWTimE for that chance. And now they find themselves here in the round of 4, where ShoWTimE, the underdog, has got a lot of work to do.
This is going to be good, Kylers. I have a feeling this is going to be good. Both of these players they've been putting a lot of thought into how to go about playing this match. I've talked a little bit to both of them, and we're going to be starting here the action on Expedition Lost. A little bit surprised, I have to say. I wouldn't have guessed this gets picked first, but I guess since it's a best of 5 and it wasn't one of the vetoes by ShoWTimE, I'm guessing, you know, Hydra decided to go for it. It's still, you know, a map where you can pull in some special builds. Actually, where most of the time you're going to see special builds just because it's so different than any other map.
Both players could do special builds in this best of 5. We've seen ShoWTimE in the round of 8 do absolutely fantastically when it came to a range and a diverse set of builds going into the series against Kane. Now, Hydra stares down an unlikely opponent, and he considers himself to be the favorite going into this round of 4 series. As we start things off in this best of 5, Expedition Lost will be our first map. The challenger in ShoWTimE looking to make the upset of the year already here. As we have spawning down to the bottom left-hand corner, it's our blue Zerg. Representing Root Gaming, it is Hydra. Arguably one of the favorites now of this entire tournament, has been for a while. And we're now up to the top right, we have our challenger in the red, representing Alternate Attacks. It is ShoWTimE.
You say Hydra considers himself the favorite. I don't think you quite understand the extent of that statement. I spoke with him a little bit before the match, and I was asking him what does he expect exactly out of ShoWTimE. And in the simplest of ways, he basically explained me that ShoWTimE is good, but he plays way too repetitive. He used way too many of the same builds, and he thought that he was just going to 3-0 him. That's simple.
Wow. Wow. Well, all right then, Hydra. He has a lot of confidence behind him. ShoWTimE, though, you know, he's I would argue that he's even quietly confident at the moment here in WCS. He's shown that he can play at such a high level, such a high caliber here, and I think he's going to give a really good run for ShoWTimE's money. Sorry, for Hydra's money, as that spawning pool has already gone down for Hydra. He will be going towards that hatchery in just a little bit as well. And already we're seeing a probe come out here for ShoWTimE to get good eyes on what Hydra's doing to start things off.
Yeah, he went all the way around that probe here. Very nicely done. He was able to spot
he's
that
going to go gold. He's going to go gold.
I mean, he's en route.
Yeah.
Once again, I've said that before, but when you're a Zerg player en route, then you get you know, to live, talk, and practice with cats, and you know, any kind of displaced hatchery. You know, it's not like, you know, hatch first, or your first hatchery on the gold is like something extraordinary that only cats does, but it's definitely one of those things, you know, where he has this certain level of comfort and he develops very, very well. And from time to time, you're going to see players, you know, that hang out, that talk with him, use it more often than not, and very successfully as well. I spoke a little bit with ShoWTimE as well, and he was telling me that he thinks PvZ is his second best matchup, but not too far behind his PvP.
Okay.
Unluckily for him, there's no Protoss here to face anymore.
He is the remaining last one here in this round of 4. I'm wondering if Hydra's going to use something like a Roach Aggression from this gold base. I mean, we've seen our Zergs have to take gold bases in the past. I think it may have been Hydra, if I can recall the games. And then from that point on, he did look to put on some aggressive moves after a wacky game coming out in that situation.
ShoWTimE told me that he watched very closely the recent games of Hydra that he played at Gfinity up against Sparting, during which he used a lot of, you know, Zerglings straight into Hydralisks with this kind of build. Even, you know, on most maps where you wouldn't think, you know, you shouldn't particularly go for that, he skipped on Roaches and went straight into Hydralisks. Now, it kind of sounded like ShoWTimE was basically saying, I'm going to copy Parting, which I've talked a little bit about this before. I think it's close to impossible. Like what Parting did with gateway units against Hydralisk and Zerglings, like, I feel like he's the only one he will be able to do somehow. So if ShoWTimE was to go for something here, like, you know, a lot of gateways and aggression up against Zerglings and Hydralisks, it will take a perfect set, you know, of first 10 to 15 force fields to win, and decision making overall, which is actually incredibly hard to do. So I'd be very surprised if not only he went for it, but secondly, he won with it.
Great block there by ShoWTimE. His Zealot was a little bit out of place, and that Zergling could have got a full scout off. But now, another probe is going to block the second Zergling that tries to come in. Really good responses there from ShoWTimE with his units, slightly dislocated from that wall.
Hydra at this point, he's going to be wondering what's happening here. What is he trying to hide? Tech may not have necessarily have started yet, but he's going to need to be putting some effort into scouting what is up, and what is up is that there is a robo on the way, a very, very quick robo at that as well. And I mean, usually when you see a robo this quick, there is either Warp Prism and lots of gateways for aggression, or Immortal pushes. And in this situation against a gold base, I do think that an Immortal push is going to be one of the best things that you can do. There is also, you know, the Warp Prism sentry drop that you can do, with which on this map you have a lot of ramps that you can force field to lock the Zerg either in or out of a certain location.
Well, right now it's looking kind of reminiscent of that. There is another Overlord on the right-hand side trying to get there.
He's gonna miss it.
He's gonna die before he even gets it. He's gonna die.
He sees everything except what he actually has to see.
Yeah, exactly. That is a bit difficult there for Hydra, gotta say.
Guess what we don't have, Kailaris, on the production tab? A Road Tron. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the Hydra, then the signature, we've been using this word a lot, the signature build here of Hydra.
It pretty much is.
It's pretty good, honestly, especially if you're not using of playing against it. Like those games of partying against Hydra where we won 4-2 against that style of Hydra, they were just out of this world. Like, as even watching them, and trying to do as much analysis as I could on them, I still don't get, the way he was able to pull it off the way he did.
He spots the Warp Prism as it gets out of this base, and then ShoWTimE now has got to really rethink this strategy. Surely he may try and fly up towards the main and try and do something there, but there's plenty of lava available here for Hydra to make any units that he needs to when defending this position.
13 lavas available for Hydra, who made a bunch of overlords in advance to make sure he would be able to get all of these Hydralisks out on the map to defend against the supposed to base, which so far is proving to be true from ShoWTimE.
And he spotted that probe being unloaded. He will find that pylon, pushing that back. Well, for a second, he could easily wrap around and try and deny that with all the amount of Zerglings.
No Immortals are starting. This is a massive all-in here. 8 gateways for ShoWTimE. He's only going to be whopping in Zealots, Sentries, maybe a few Stalkers here and there, but I think mostly Zealots and Sentries, and he's trying to pull a little bit of a parting build here.
This could get really scary, because he's going up against Hydralisks, and Hydras are going to be able to bring down these gateway units very, very quickly. Force fields need to go down eventually, but he's going to throw up the Guardian Shield to start things off. Already locked some of those Hydralisks against these units, but he has very little available here to him to ShoWTimE. Very, very difficult to deal with.
This is what I was telling you. You can't go for the parting build and hope for it to be nearly as successful as when he does. And look at ShoWTimE's face. He knows that he's in so much trouble. He most likely already has lost this game. It's just so hard to recover from there. Oh, the Roddy Mothership Core.
It was a cheeky attempt here from ShoWTimE, but it was spotted as those Zerglings at the front saw it coming out of the main base. Now Hydra has his Infestation Pit on the way. The Ling Hydra composition that he has available here, and the creep spread pushing forwards, he could happily just go Swarmos and just start sieging up this location.
I mean, with the income that he has from that gold base being, 8 workers ahead, he can literally go into anything he wants. The creep spread is just massive. ShoWTimE's gonna go for another wave number 2 of the all-in here, but I mean, I do think that Hydra is gonna be able to defend as long as he just keeps on making units, and he's doing just that right now, Kailaris.
How he's supposed to deal with this? How he's supposed to break these locations? 62 army supply against 53 at the moment. Force fields are pretty good. I'm not gonna disagree with that, but he needs to find a good route to actually execute that. There's already spines as well as a ton of Hydras here at the front.
It's actually a pretty massive army here by ShoWTimE. 61 army supply to 73. Hydras are very good against this, but Force Fields and Guardian Shield going to be ShoWTimE's only hope.
That's going to be okay. There's about 5 Hydras at the back that aren't shooting at the moment, so not really denying too much of the damage coming in forwards here against him. That second wave of Force Fields might separate off a few at the back. The Zealots move to the forwards, and the Hydras were able to kill those off at the front, but I think eventually he should be able to win out this fight with a defensive position.
Yeah, ShoWTimE's out of Force Fields. He's out of strength, out of units here.
He lost the Warp Prism as well. Can't reinforce into this fight as quickly as he would like. Dancing the Hydralisks. Hydra, you cheeky guy. This is only game number 1. And he's telling ShoWTimE to get out of this game at the moment because he is pushing this gateway force back. He only has 8 Stalkers and 1 Sentry left. That ends up falling. And dances again. Hydra here in WCS. He is so damn confident. Oh my God. Gonna have to micro back these Stalkers. I'm not really sure he can do a whole lot more with this, but Hydra doesn't even break a sweat here. There you go. GG. Game number 1 goes to Hydra. He's almost trying to demoralize ShoWTimE in this first game.
And I'm very worried that he might succeed here. If you start letting this get to your head here as ShoWTimE, you are not gonna be in for a good time. This was a very risky attempt here by ShoWTimE, which got sanctioned very, very quickly. To be honest, this style of Zergling straight into Hydra is very, very hard to deal with, just because nobody else uses it. Well, I guess if you lived in Europe and used to play against Steffel, to some extent, he was the guy doing that, but he was pretty different from back then. And I feel like in this game, if he wanted to do that ShoWTimE, he could have done it much better with just gateways without a robo. Because actually going for a robo, it kind of slowed down, not only the timing, but the amount of units that he actually went for. He had just gone for pure 8 gateways, lots of sentries, zealots, and then later on whopped in some stalkers. And took a good fight with good force fields. I feel he would have had a much better chance than for what he tried for. Like, it's like he had a warp prism to reinforce. Why even make a pylon then?
That was tough stuff for ShoWTimE. Very, very tough stuff. Catalina is going to be our next map here in this best-of-5 semi-final to figure out who goes on to the grand final here at the World Championship Series Season 1 for 2015. And what a season it has been so far, Todd. What a round of 8 we had just before this. And what a road ShoWTimE has had to this round of 4. But Hydra, look how confident he looked in that game number 1. Look at those dancing units to just try and push ShoWTimE to the brink in terms of his mindset. Catalina being our second map here, Todd. Who are you favoring going into this?
I mean, Hydra, definitely. In this kind of series, after losing the first game like this here, if I was ShoWTimE, I definitely would want to go back to my go-to style, 3 bases, Blink, Stalkers and all that. But Catalina can be a tough map to take a 3rd base on. It's a map where we see a lot of special builds once again. So I really don't know what he's going to go for, but I hope for him that it's the right choice this time, because he definitely wasn't the last game.
All right, let's get into it. Game number 2 here in this round of 4 semi-final, as we have spawning down to the bottom right here of Catalina. It's our blue Zerg representing Team Root. It is Hydra. Showing dominating performance there in game number 1. Knew exactly what to do against the kind of plays that we're seeing from this man up to the north. As our red Protoss representing alternate attacks, it is ShoWTimE. Dispatched of a very strong Zerg in the previous round, but now he faces the tallest task of his tournament.
Hydra told me that he thought ShoWTimE is very, very predictable. ShoWTimE almost always opens for Gateway 13, then goes for a Nexus without gas. And when you do the same build pretty much every single game, without really mixing up all that much, and you become predictable, there is a few hard counters that you can do as a Zerg. I feel like one of the best builds that you could use here as a Zerg against this style is to be very greedy. You could literally go for double hatch, then pull, be extremely greedy, and there's nothing the Protoss player is going to be able to do to punish that. You can't really throw down a Forge in the middle of that build and cannon base. Or actually, you can, but it wouldn't be that good, I think, personally. So Hydra still goes for the pull first here. Gonna want to be careful, up against the cannon rush, which ShoWTimE from time to time definitely has proved he could go for that. And actually ShoWTimE goes for a gas this time, so not gonna be going for the usual Nexus behind Gateway.
We have seen him try that, you're right. And sometimes it's had varying degrees of success. ShoWTimE has even scouted out very, very early on 4-player maps and then tried to go for those Forge cannon rush plays. But so far, he is just looking to go for what would seem like a quicker expansion after the Cybernetics core has gone down here for ShoWTimE. And at the moment, he's got to be reeling from that first game. Hydra, as I said, at the very end of that game, trying to demoralize his opponent. And you very rarely see that happen at the first game of a best-of-5.
Yeah, I mean, this really wasn't a very good way to start the series here for ShoWTimE. Not only picked the wrong build, but his opponent ended up dancing right before him during those fights. Like, there was still quite a few units out there for ShoWTimE. I mean, Hydra wasn't going to lose anytime soon, but definitely, a tough loss. And now he's open with, a little bit of an old school build, going for, the Gateway, Gas Core, starting the Nexus, and then getting Mothership Core plus Warp Gate. I'm pretty sure he's going to get a Zealot here, most likely, with which you can actually move out, try and put some pressure. ShoWTimE has been the guy, though, who's really, really loved going for a Stalker. And since he's not going for a Zealot right now, I'm starting to believe that he's just gonna want to go for the usual Stalker that he loves to deny any kind of scouting with. And here we go, Stalker.
probe will spot the third base. That's a good little scout there for ShoWTimE. Decides not to go towards the natural, knowing that there is probably one there anyway after the timing of the second expansion that he's spotted. And just Chrono boosting out the warp gate tech for now. It's pretty normal on the world of ShoWTimE with that second gas on the way.
I think ShoWTimE here, he just adds on 2 gateways, he goes into a forge and kind of goes, you know, into his usual build. It feels a little bit like he went for this build here to be safe in case, you know, Hydra was to try for some all-in. Like, Hydra showed so much confidence the first game. The way, you know, he went for his build order, he had way too much for what ShoWTimE had, and then he danced units. Hydra feels like a very, very confident guy right now. And sometimes confident guys, they are that confident, you know, guys like Life, that they throw down, you know, a 10 gas, 10 pull, and they go for Ling Rush, and they kill you when you go Nexus first. So maybe didn't want to risk that. And it looks like we might have... Oh, nice deny here on the scout with those probes at the ramp. We might have, you know, a 3-gate pressure here, which... Oh my god, there's a Ling.
Yeah.
Going around here.
And he did actually reroute it, but towards the same direction anyway.
Oh my
with
god.
That Stargate now about to go down.
That Ling is queued right on top of that.
Yeah, Hydra is going to find this straight away. That Stalker is looking to come and deny.
Oh, he might follow the probe, actually, to kill it. But since the probe was hidden up there, Hydra, if he realizes, you know, that it was, he would just check there. But no, he's going to lose the Ling.
He'll send something. He has to send something.
Okay, this is very suspicious. And by that, I mean, right now, Hydra, he knows that he's being attacked by gateways. But I think he might not suspect the Stargate. It's very common to get a pylon here to attack with gateways.
That's true.
I don't think he's going to get spores.
You know what? ShoWTimE, from there on out, might have actually used these Stalkers as the ruse.
Yes.
4 Stalkers coming down from this location here might throw Hydra off guard, of course, with those Lings. Now trying to push this back, but they don't have speed. There's 14 more on the way, but speed is miles off.
Yeah. Where is he going to fly with the Oracle into, though? Does he go for the main? If he goes for the third base, there could be, you know, 2 queens.
If he could get queens with this small force somehow, some way, but he's got to deal with the Lings first.
Yeah, the Oracle's goal here is to kill drones, nothing else. You don't want to go for Lings. You don't care about Lings.
No, not at all. Well, he will continue to micro on back against this. ShoWTimE's a little bit scared right now as to when speed's going to be kicking in. Luckily for him, it's going to kick in quite late. There has been a forge spotted behind all of this, so Hydra should know that the transition is possible from here.
He's waiting for the recall. Speed is 12 seconds away from finishing. He actually gets a surround, forces the recall, but the Oracle's he's gonna be flying in the main here. There is only 1 queen there, Kailaris.
And there's no creep connecting these bases, so it will take a little while for them to reinforce. There goes the Spore Crawler instantly to try and deny anything extra from going on, but the drones obviously have to evacuate out to the safety of a second queen. Good use of the drones to lure him to a second queen in range of it, despite not having that creep connecting the bases.
Oh, Lings are gonna try to sneak into the main here of ShoWTimE. He's actually moved out of here a little bit outside of his wall. Needs to be careful, but he should have enough units to defend that. Anyway, Lings are now going for the pylon, and they're gonna find the Stargate.
And he'll kill off more drones at the third base, which is always very, very nice here for ShoWTimE to try and even up those numbers. It's 54 workers to 49 at the moment.
He killed 10 drones in total this game, and he still has his double Oracle alive. So right now, ShoWTimE is going to start working on the third base. He's got Blink and +1 on the way. I wouldn't be surprised if he threw down a bunch of additional gateways, went into a lot of stalkers, and with how much he slowed Hydra, I mean, 51 probes to 15-8 drones, it's not bad at all. He's going to be able to get a lot of units out.
And walls off with that Zealot, making sure he's not going to be able to get anything here. But at the same time, the sentries that did come back get walled in with some of those Zerglings. One will continue to survive on, but one did fall, and the Zerglings managed to get in. So he's going to get full intel here.
Yeah. He's going to see that there is most likely Blink and some attack upgrades on the way. It's almost never going to be charged here. Hydra rebuilt quite nicely on drones, by the way. Oh my god, 70 drones to 49 probes right now. So he has a great economy, but I mean, in terms of, you know, units and tech, he can basically only make Roaches and Hydras right now. He's going into the infestation pit. No Spire or anything like that here on this map and in these positions. He knows that it's probably going to be a very, you know, aggressive map here for ShoWTimE, who started the third, and Hydra saw it immediately. So usually what you see behind this is like a lot of gateways, lots of Link Stalkers, and then aggression. So I think Hydra might be planning to go into Hydras, Roaches, and then straight into Hive for some Vipers.
I mean, this is one of the parts of the game where Hydra finds the most stability and the most control. In the mid-game, where he has available to him the Ling Hydra, maybe even Roaches in their composition, but also with the Hive on the way, he has a very, very quick transitionary route up to Vipers, which is actually something at the moment that he might not need for more so for Blinding Clouds than Abduct because of the style that we're seeing from ShoWTimE.
He needs more Hydralisks, more Roaches, maybe even more Links on the ground, but he seems confident enough to take into Vipers already. He sees, you know, the move out here from ShoWTimE, who's on 8 gateways. He's going to be whopping in Stalkers 8 by 8, Kailash. The saturation on the third base of ShoWTimE is minimal. This is a massive commitment here out of ShoWTimE, and he's expecting to achieve damage.
And moving forwards now, how much do we have available to Hydra? Only 14 Hydralisks and 13 Zerglings. There's a few more Zerglings on the way, 9 Hydralisks in production, and they will have their speed very, very soon. Force Fields could do a pretty good job if he was to take the engagement now, but he doesn't want to stray too far onto creep, thus he would potentially get surrounded.
Not sure why Hydra is sending his Lings away. He's going to go for a snipe on the panel. He's coming back with them now.
Okay, he's actually zoning out quite a few of those Hydralisks at the back that aren't doing much, but he's not getting a ton of damage done himself whilst that first wall is down. So he's going to pull back. I think he was expecting the Zerglings to run in from the back and isolate those things off.
ShoWTimE has been playing a little bit scared here, and he should be, because there is just so many Hydralisks out here for Hydra. He's wearing his name well, man. And they're going to do well for him against Stalkers and pure gateway units so far.
They're set up in a good concave. Time Warp's going to end up falling to try and slow down and make sure the positioning of the concave is good. That initial force field will separate off a little bit of this concave, and that was a very, very patient, strong move there by ShoWTimE. Blinks forwards on top of all of these Hydras here, and he should be able to bring a lot of them down. The drones had to get pulled off the line as well for Hydra, but he's going to push it back.
I think Hydra realized how many drones he had, and he realized that he had too many of them, that he could use them to tank some damage for his units. All of a sudden, he's held for now, but ShoWTimE's trying to regain a good position on the left-hand side. Oh my god, that one sentry is full on energy. Vipers are in the production now. Oh, Viper, rather. It's just one for now.
Yeah, and Blinding Cloud, very, very strong against this composition, unless the Blink Stalkers can reposition themselves very, very quickly. The Hydralisks will rip up those Stalkers if he doesn't actually do much with it. The third base for ShoWTimE is very undersaturated at the moment. So he's doing this off only 53 workers.
This is all in Kailash. He has to do way much more damage. He has to commit more. And he's blinking forward. Big mistake against this many Roaches and Hydras.
There's a lot there for Hydra. He's going to push this all the way back through the middle of the map. There is a pylon and reinforcing there, but again, he's down on gas. He's down on minerals. He really doesn't have much to fuel this any longer.
Hydra now. Now that he's got a Viper for Blinding Cloud, I mean, this is going to be even harder for ShoWTimE to make anything happen. He's run out of sentry. The Root Gaming player, man, he's playing so well, and I really think this is going to be a 2-0 unless something crazy happens. What can he do at this point? ShoWTimE, I guess he's going to try for a move in the main base here, but
I'm not sure. He needs to find a route somewhere. And, well, all those Roaches are going to have to push all this away. And he will actually blink down very, very strongly against that. So it wasn't a terrible trade for ShoWTimE, but he's still so far down. He's only warping in Stalkers. And as much as Stalkers are strong, +2 has only just started now. About 15 minutes into the game, that's not early enough.
He was on +1 this whole time, and now Hydra is just that confident. He realized how much more supply he has. He's going to press forward with the one Viper that he has as well. I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing Hydralisks dancing here very soon, Kailash.
Yeah, probably. This is a really, really strong force from Hydra, pushing on towards the third base. ShoWTimE trying to blink back desperately against the oncoming tide of aggression
double army supply
that we're going to see pushing on through towards that third base. He's setting himself up a concave for these Blink Stalkers, but they really don't have much room to blink back to.
Double the army supply, Kailash. 128 to 64 right now. Hydra is just waiting to regroup a little bit with his units. You can see he still has a few of them in the production tab. I don't think waiting for the upgrades is necessary here.
Yeah.
But he's just going to go for it, and I don't see how ShoWTimE is going to be able to hold this.
So much power behind this Roach and Hydra, even though Viper coming along could happily throw down a Blinding Cloud, will do in the midst of all of these Stalkers that are going to fall very, very rapidly, despite the Blink Micro going down here from ShoWTimE and trying to hold on valiantly. Well, actually, he's not doing too badly, but still, the reinforcement potential for Hydra behind this, because he has 4 bases, is very, very strong. He's going to bring in a few more Hydras to try and break this position once and for all. It's still only gateway units here for ShoWTimE. As on the right flank, he was defeated on the left, And now the right is vulnerable here at this third base. He can bring down building after building. If he was reinforcing very aggressively with those roaches and Hydras to come along at the front, then he can actually just end this very soon.
I mean, ShoWTimE here, he has no other tech than Blink Stalkers. +2 will finish here momentarily, but I mean, he's down to 18 Stalkers, no Sentry and 1 Zealot against 16 Roaches and 19 Hydralisk. I really don't see how he's gonna stay in this game too much longer here. 4 turnover charge or not, and Hydra is marching towards victory at this point.
His army's super, super strong at the moment, as ShoWTimE still only has Blinkstalkers available to him. Of course, he did get +2 weapons in there, so that will help him for a little bit, but Hive is finished for Hydra. He's got +3 weapons on the way, so ShoWTimE is really against the clock. How are you supposed to defeat Roach Hydra composition with only Blinkstalkers, especially when they're going to have +3?
Well, in this situation, he cannot transition anyway, so I guess he's going to be only Blinkstalkers and hope for a miracle, but right now, Hydra is just waiting to remax, regroup, and with the 1 Viper that's here, Blinding Clouds are going to be pretty massive once again.
Yeah, trying to grab himself the concave. There you go, GG, that Blinding Cloud goes down, and Hydra is able to take game at number 2 pretty strongly there. There were moments where ShoWTimE was looking to threaten, but in the end, Hydra prevails through. All right, game number 3 will be coming up very soon here between Hydra and ShoWTimE, and it's going to be on Overgrowth. Is there some way that ShoWTimE can mount this comeback, Todd?
I think so, but it's going to be through playing very differently. Right now, he's trying to be very aggressive. It's almost as if he's playing like he's the massive underdog. I don't think he's the massive underdog. He's been playing really well this tournament. That's including up against Zergs. You know, the way, like, when you see a player play this aggressive here, it kind of looks, you know, a little bit desperate to some extent, especially 2 games like this in a row. So I'm not sure exactly why he's playing like this. He must think, or he must have thought, at least beforehand, that it was the best way to go about taking on somebody like Hydra, but it wasn't. He should try for a straight-up game, I think.
Maybe, yeah. The man, at the moment, he looks like a man broken, as you can see there.
But a standard game, you know, 3 bases, more tech, take it to the late game, because that's also really where Hydra struggled in the past. Remember, like some of those games up against Zest in Katowice, the 3 games that he lost, he looked a little bit, you know, I guess lost. That's the best word that I can think of in those games. Like, he didn't seem to know exactly when and how to transition, and then just kind of died, you know, to Zest's perfect read in those games.
Well, Overgrowth is going to be our 3rd map here between ShoWTimE and Hydra, and the countdown has begun for our 3rd map as we get into it. There is the potential that we could see the clean sweep here from Hydra, and he moves on to the grand finals in stellar fashion, in dominating fashion. He's looked good all tournament long. But can ShoWTimE, the challenger, come back? He needs to win 3 games in a row from here on out. Otherwise, he will be eliminated from the World Championship Series. As we load up for game number 3. The man to the left, 2 games up at the moment, and looking to power on through to the grand final. As we have spawning up to the right-hand corner of the map here on Overgrowth, it is that man indeed. Representing Team Root, it is Hydra. And down to the bottom left-hand corner, it's our red Protoss. Hailing from Germany, 2-time EPS champion and making it all the way to the round of 8, it is ShoWTimE.
Maybe one of the reasons he played the way he did in previous game was once again the map. You know, I mentioned it before we started on it. It can be very difficult on Catalina, you know, to play a standard game. It's such a different map. There is a lot of, you know, path your opponent can counterattack through, and it's going to be harder, you know, to get vision on what your opponent is exactly doing sometimes. So he thought that, you know, that he was going to be able to break Hydra with a lot of Blinkstalkers, and 99% of the time this kind of stuff works, you know, against 99% of players, but against Hydra, he's just way too solid right now. And well, very interested in that goal base by the look of things right now.
Yeah, showing no fear here as Hydra in the round of 4. And after the last 2 games that we've had from him, why on earth would he show fear, right? He has actually dominated these positions. ShoWTimE gave him a little bit of a run for his money in game number 2 on Catalina, whilst he was trying to put on pressure at that 3rd base, but it was unsuccessful and Hydra stabilized pretty well.
Hydra is not only ridiculously good, he also has this own style, you know, where he goes for like gold bases, goes for Hydralisks and Zerglings while keeping roaches that make it even more difficult of playing against him. Like a player plays in old style, he's always gonna play, you know, to his advantage to some extent, but it's really the fact that he's just so good, plus does his own style, that really is throwing ShoWTimE off his game completely so far in this series here. Now we're on Overgrowth. This is the map that has been the map all the longest. ShoWTimE has played a lot of games on this map. I'm sure he's gonna have a better idea on what to do and, you know, figure out a better game plan. I really think that even against a gold base here, you can play a little bit more straight up, you know, take your own 3rd base and then have a good mix of defense with controlled aggression to propel yourself into, you know, the middle stage, possibly even late game stage of the game here.
Well, spots himself that gold base up towards the top. And ShoWTimE from here on out, I have to agree with you. I think that going for something like a longer plan, a longer term plan, maybe even the Phoenix play he went for before, but going up against Hydra with him being so projected towards going Hydras very, very fast, unless you catch those Hydralisks early when they're popping out from each of the hatcheries, you're not going to be able to deal with them too well with that kind of Phoenix opener.
I was thinking more something like Blink and +2 with the 3rd base, with which you fake that you want to be very aggressive on the gold base, and then Zerg kind of panics, makes a lot of units, but behind this you're actually taking and planning on playing defensively. In which case, if the Zerg moves across the map, you have photon overcharge, you can force field, you can defend with a lot of Blink Stalkers, and then you're taking onto better units, so Colossus, High Templars, while the Zerg is expanding a lot more slowly in terms of taking a 4th, taking a 5th, just because you faked aggression with those Blink Stalkers. I know I went very far with this, but this is what I was feeling would be good, I think he might do here.
Well, going to take his natural base from here on out is Hydra, after having secured that goal before, and he's scouting out every single little inch of the map on the right-hand side to make sure that there's not going to be anything too crazy going on from ShoWTimE, as Hydra seems to feel comfortable against anything other than something completely out of the ordinary. Even checking down to the bottom right-hand corner, just in case it would be that Twilight Council with the Dark Shrine that we saw in ShoWTimE's previous match.
Hydra has looked so good in those first 2 games. I'm really, really worried for ShoWTimE here. He's definitely going to be needing to be on his A game. And I mean, Hydra at this point, he even told me his best matchup is the Zerg versus Terran. He would face a Terran in the finals if he won here. He would be a very, very happy guy with that, even before the match began here. Our observer here just a second ago pointed out the income right now, thanks to the golds, vastly superior here for Hydra. The thing is, as good as that is, as long as, you know, you get your sentries, your stalkers, you should be okay defensively, possibly even with a few good timings offensively here for Protoss.
And it's so fantastic to see that Hydra has really kind of crunched the numbers and understands that Protoss, even when he takes a gold base, even on Overgrowth, has a pretty difficult time of dealing with it if you're a guy like ShoWTimE who plays these kinds of styles. So he is hunkered down, he is good to go. He's getting even Spore Crawlers just to make sure that he's not going to take any damage back at home. And from there on out, his economy will look good. And he'll probably just transition into the Hydras very, very soon with the range upgrade.
Yeah, that guy, man. He loves that build. One good thing that Hydra could have done is start working on this debris between his natural and gold base, but instead of that, he wants to be a little bit aggressive, which shouldn't work here. Especially since +1 is, you know, closing in very, very quickly. ShoWTimE's gonna go for the same one on that 3rd base, by the way, that he did last time. You can't... What?
Whoa, that was a really quick cancel, but...
That was a bit of a premature cancel. I guess he didn't want to move out with all of the sentries and the Stalker. ShoWTimE is falling apart here a little bit. I really think he should have been able to defend that here with the Zealot Warp in. Oh my god. And all of a sudden, he's going for double Twilight Council. No, ShoWTimE.
This could spell disaster.
Completely falling apart. He's adding on gateways. He's going to be going for a 2-base blink here, possibly. No, I think he's going to try to re-expand, but I mean...
Oh dear.
This is bad. He's facing a gold base. He's going to be taking a 3rd base much later than he would have liked to.
You can't do this.
At this point, for Hydra, having delayed the 3rd base this much, okay, he finally realized that he had double Twilight. At this point for Hydra, he realized that he delayed the 3rd base enough to possibly, you know, make a lot of units and even go for an attack. He might be thinking about it. Might not necessarily go for it, just because is ahead enough that he could take the opportunity, but both things will be right. Macroing will be okay, going for an attack could be okay here as well too.
Hydra's going for the infestation pit behind this, so he can get up to that hive pretty quickly, and then from that point on, he is going to be rocketing. I mean, he's only at 48 workers at the moment, sure, but the lead he has, he's got a lot more Lings on the way. How many units does he have? He has 10 Hydralists as well.
He made 10 Hydras, which are going to be rejoined by, I don't know, like something like 50 Zerglings.
If he sandwiches those units in between all of this, the 5 Hydras are at the front pressuring. But this force alone, how is it going to be able to hold this? He needs to throw down force fields. Will do it from the top. Good. Seals off a lot of those Hydralists there, and that's the best engagement he could possibly take, considering how many Zerglings are floating on around.
I'm a little bit surprised that Hydra is not going for the wall on the left-hand side. Here we go. He's going to go for that. Photon of a charge should be used there. ShoWTimE, he needs to a few Zealots who tank at the front for his sentries and Stalkers to do the damage behind to kill those Hydralists. And Hydra here, I don't think he's going to overextend. He made all of those units, but behind this he was droning up. He's already taking into Hive. He's getting a Roach run. With the lead that he has here, there is quite a few things that he could do. He could, I think, even finish it with just Roach, Hydra, and Vipers, but he's going for Enduring Locusts, so I guess he's going to go the other route. That's possible.
Yeah, I can happily just put on some pressure through the middle or towards that third base with those Swarm hosts. Use them in a very aggressive manner. There's no real reason for him to sit back and sit still. ShoWTimE is adding on Immortals to the composition.
He's panicked. You don't need those Immortals right now.
And the Contaminate as well to slow down the upgrades here from ShoWTimE. Every little thing is going in Hydra's favor, aside from the Overseer dying off. But other than that, at the moment, to be honest with you though, Hydra's economy at the very beginning of this game wasn't very strong.
Yeah, he neglected the drone production and made a lot of Zerglings and Hydras, which he were defended well enough. ShoWTimE knew that here he couldn't fight too early. He had to buy some time, so he threw down a good set of force fields, which bought him enough time for him to survive longer. And then behind this, Hydra had to pull back because he was going to get overwhelmed if he stayed for too long. But now he's going into Swarmos production. ShoWTimE has no idea. ShoWTimE, ideally right now, you would like to face, a Roach Hydra composition, not Vipers and Swarmos. He's not ready for those. He has no RoboBay or Templar Archive.
He has a lot of steps to be taking before he can actually combat anything that we're seeing from Hydra, who could easily just move towards the right-hand side with a clump of this, then continue to put on the pressure there. The creep has encroached onto Protoss location, almost next to the natural, and that will make these Swarm hosts all the more powerful as ShoWTimE realizes he has to do something about
this is great for Hydra. If he can just set up, the siege here with the Spore Quarter and the vision from the Xel'Naga Watchtower. There is no way for ShoWTimE to circumvent this position. Like doing something like going through the right-hand side and counter-attacking might be one of the best things that he could do here. But look, he's getting the Templar Archive, he's getting the RoboBay, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be defending, which usually proves to be most difficult here against a good Zerg like Hydra.
Yeah, he's going to have to defend for a while. He's going to have to defend for a very long time.
He's going to rely on the War Prism to go for some kind of counter-attack to try and pull Hydra back. But I mean, Hydra, he has no plan to give him any time right now. He's sieging with a few Swarmos, he's amassing Roaches, Hydralisk and Vipers, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be going for a deadly attack here very soon.
Force fields can buy a little bit of time as he will throw down some on the top here, as well as to the left-hand side. Some of the Locusts do end up filtering through, and they get even just a few of these gateway units, which will make it all the harder here for ShoWTimE to hold on against it. Even the small amount of units that are getting forwards with the grabs there onto the Immortals as well means that ShoWTimE here is on the brink of elimination, with Blinding Clouds slowing down any kind of damage that's coming out from this gateway force. An army supply of 129 against 41. ShoWTimE is all but done here. He's trying to hold on at this third base. Photon Overcharge will do a little bit more damage, but the Roaches and Hydras just don't care. Powering through towards this third base location, killing off any more units that remain on the right-hand side, and he may have overstretched it just a little bit there, but he's done so much damage in preparation for any next stage in this game, and it's going to be a very hard time for ShoWTimE.
There's too much. ShoWTimE tried his best, but there's just too much, Kylars.
It was a valiant effort, but the third base will fall. ShoWTimE was trying to hold on tooth and nail to keep that location, but it is not going to come to pass as the Stalkers try and blink furiously back on the right-hand side, but well played, GG. Hydra makes it to the grand finals here after an absolute masterclass of Zerg versus Protoss. Such strong play from Hydra throughout all of this. As he now moves on to the grand final, ShoWTimE, though, he's had quite the road through WCS. So you can't say that that was a poor performance from him going up against someone like Hydra that is always willing to bring the pressure, the aggression. But, I mean, you mentioned it yourself at the very, very end of that. It did look like ShoWTimE was crumbling a little bit.
I wonder if the Hydras in the first game affected him at all, because double Twilight Council, you don't see that all that often unless you watch my stream. So that was very, very weird. Making this kind of mistake in such an important game, I really feel like, you know, maybe the pressure got to him or something, and in the end, it's really sad because he's going to go out of the tournament. But Hydra, I can only commend how well he played here. Yeah,
very, very strong. Hydra deserves a spot in that grand final here at the World Championship Series. And without further ado, that does it from us here at the desk. Let's head over to the stage with Smix.
Fortier, give it up for your first grand finalist, Hydra! Hydra, this is your first time playing in the WCS system, and you've already made it to the top 2. You look so strong and dominant, 3-0 against TLO, 3-0 against ShoWTimE. How are you able to stay so calm?
I don't know. I'm always have confidence before my match, and I try to my best for in the game. Yeah, that's the reason I think.
Well, you're already in the grand finals, but you were just in the grand finals of another tournament last week. Unfortunately, you got second there. Why will it be different this time?
I got second place from Gfinity, but I'm not disappointed by myself and just prepare this WCS and just try to my best. Yeah, that's very good, I think.
Hydra, we've spoken to you so many times now as you keep on winning. I've been wanting to ask you, we just asked Pult why people should cheer for him, and he said it's because he's the most handsome player that's left in the tournament. So I want to ask you now, why should the fans here in France and all the fans watching online cheer for you, Hydra?
I think I'm handsome than Pult, so maybe people should cheer me. Yeah.
All right, well, congratulations again, Hydra, on making it to the grand finals. We're about to find out who will go up against him in our next semifinal match. But before we get there, let's head back to the desk with Sean Apollo Clark.
Thank you very much, Smix. Congratulations to our first finalist. Root Gaming's Hydra makes it to the grand finals here at the World Championship Series Season 1 Premier League. What an awesome achievement for him. 2 finals in a week. Gfinity last week, unfortunately losing out to Parting. This week, another final. It's a dream come true. Anyone.
Yeah, he's dominating right now, and he had a few unorthodox styles right there. ShoWTimE looking a bit weak through that series, but only because of how well Hydra played through that. Just one thing about ShoWTimE there, he played like he was playing the rest of the players in the tournament, the Europeans that he's played against so far. He's going for these big blink attacks, which are really good against those players that go for Swarm Hosts. He's delaying the Colossus, but Hydra, he's just going into that Roach Hydra, and you need Colossus against that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there were a couple of opportunities in the games. Like the one that really stood out for me the most were 2 opportunities on Catalina. First early game, Hydra was pretty damn greedy on that map. Like he didn't have circling speed, almost up to the 8-minute mark. The first 3 Stalkers, they prompted out like 26 slow links, or he had 4 Stalkers and the Oracle was on the way. If on that moment he adds 3 more Stalkers, you can start guiding links for days. Of course, we see circling speed timing. He doesn't, but you can bring the pylon a little bit closer. He had a Mothership Core anyway, so if it would get too dicey, he could recall out. But if he just sees how late it truly was, you kite, then you warp in 3 Zealots, and then you have the Oracle on top of it. So instead of killing 3 drones, I think you can do devastating amounts of damage. Obviously, that's very easy to say when you see that circling speed is that late. But if you have the map presence, then it's at least worth going for it, especially when you have that get out of jail free card with the Mothership Core. So that was one opportunity in Catalina. And the second one was later on when he made that big blink up the ramp. Like he trapped a lot of units in a natural, and that was good. But I think think he didn't need to make that forward blink. I think if he starts microing on that point, and of course renew the force fields, once again, a lot easier said than done, because you're force fielding and microing and Guardian Shield. But if he does it and he takes away a couple of those units and then he makes the blink, then I also think he has a chance to take that game. So, you know, it wasn't a total disaster. It wasn't always bad positions, but game 1 and game 3, it's gold bases. And in game 1, he went very aggro, which didn't work out. Game 3, he did a polar opposite, which didn't work out either.
Do you think there was a major difference between ShoWTimE in the quarterfinals and the ShoWTimE that we saw up there, Nathanius?
I can't really say. You look at the level of his opponents, right? Anybody's going to look bad playing against Hydra in this tournament. Hell, he made Polt look bad, who could end up being in the grand finals to rematch him. The only thing that I'm very interested to see is which player goes up against him, because like I said, Bunny's actually taken a map off him at least in the last week.
All right, let's take a look at the bracket, and we can confirm that we do have our first grand finalist. But that means we have our second soon to come. Our next semi-final is going to be Bunny versus Polt. Liquid Bunny versus CM Storm Polt in this Terran versus Terran. We saw a fantastic Terran versus Terran a little bit earlier on when 4GG was involved. You think that this can be on the same level here? Do you think that Bunny can be able to stop Polt from getting to his third potential trophy?
That's a really tricky question, because Polt showed up with some very strong flavors of attacks, and I don't see Bunny as being anywhere remotely as aggressive as 4GG in the early game. Bunny's the kind of guy that'll do the same builds that Polt was doing, opening up with the Reaper expands, moving into bio. So this series is going to hinge a lot more on the snap reactions to the big drops, because I feel like the next series is going to be all about those plays.
Yeah, final thoughts here, Fannin, before we move on?
I mean, if the next series is all about the big drops, then Polt is going to be one of those players who's going to be strong in that scenario.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. We'll look forward to hearing more of your thoughts a little bit later on, but you're going to go to a very quick commercial break before we do start that second semi-final. But we have another question for some of the pros and some of the personalities. Which movie star would you play Archon mode with?
Probably Jessica Alba. I would love to play Archon mode with her, because, you know, I think she'd be impressed with my StarCraft skills and my APM. So I definitely think that she'd be a good choice.
Keanu Reeves, I think. Jet Li, because if we lose and if the other team makes us feel bad, then Jet Li can do something about it in real life.
Zach Galifianakis, just because it would be a completely ridiculous debacle. It'd be awesome.